If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges.
Canada's parliament is extending Prime Minister Trudeau's emergency powers used to crack down on convoy supporters, but Conservatives say it's being used to target law-abiding citizens like a mom who donated a small sum of money to the movement.
That is unconscionable. Joining us now, Fox Nation host Tommy Lahren on a Tommy Tuesday. Tommy, how is this tolerated in a democracy?
Well, quite frankly, I think Trudeau just declared his country to be a dictatorship, not a democracy. It's something that you shouldn't see in the United States, you shouldn't see in Canada, something that you'd more likely see in places like Venezuela, Cuba, or China. But I want to talk about our government, because the fact that our leaders have not stood up and said anything about this, about our neighbors to the north and what they're doing to their citizens and the robbing of their civil rights and liberties and, quite frankly, their voice, the fact that our leaders have said nothing about it is what truly concerns me, and I believe it's because they relish the idea of doing something very similar in the United States should a convoy come. And I believe that they also want to have that on the table to weaponize against their political opponents. But I also have to say that those freedom truckers and those that support them have more intestinal fortitude than most Americans that I know. But there are so many Americans that support what they are doing. And if we've learned anything in the last couple of years, it's how essential truck drivers, farmers, and ranchers are, and how unessential actors are, politicians, and those who claim to be so important. Not the case. We need our essential workers, and we stand behind them.
We certainly do. And I want to talk to you about crime that's happening across the country, in particular the story that's unfolding in New York City, where there's this career criminal arrested 46 times, 46 prior arrests. He gets caught mugging someone, and then he is charged with grand larceny. DA Alvin Braggs downgrades his sentence. He said he was going to do this. Now it's happening. What do you make of this situation and the fact that these criminals are still getting off pretty easily?
That's what happens when you have states that essentially have one-party rule, like New York and California and elsewhere. And it's also what happens when you adopt these felon-coddling policies under the guise of criminal justice reform. This isn't criminal justice reform. And if you want criminal justice reform, you should put career criminals and thugs behind bars and keep them there and protect the law-abiding and decent citizens of your cities and of your states. And what needs to be asked is why these liberal DAs, why these Democrats are so beholden to the thugs, the felons, and the criminals, and not beholden to the citizens that they are supposed to protect and defend. That is the question that needs to be asked. I'm not sure we'll get an answer, but it begs the question, and more people need to ask it.
Finally, Tommy, the Washington Post editorial board supports a federal no-fly list for passengers who simply don't obey mask mandates on flights. What does a statement like that tell you about the mindset of the media itself and the people who ultimately work in the media?
Well, I also think it tells you that much of the mainstream media wants to keep up the COVID fear and COVID hysteria and, of course, the COVID control. There's been so much division in our country over the last couple of years over COVID and the continuing hysteria and the face mask mandates and the vaccine mandates. But it also tells you, if you contrast that to the earlier story about crime in cities, you've got so many of these liberals who want to treat the maskless as thugs and degenerates, but want to treat actual thugs and degenerates as social justice warriors and martyrs for a cause. That just shows you what a messed up time we live in, and unfortunately the mainstream media is complicit with that. On airplanes, we know that those cloth face masks are essentially decorative face coverings at this point, so it's time to unmask, it's time to breathe freely, and we shouldn't be treated like criminals for doing so, much to the dismay of liberals who want to keep up that COVID hysteria.
Tommy, I prefer when you call them a face diaper. That makes my Tuesdays usually. So please regale us.
Always a face diaper, and I will make sure I say it for you next week.
Thank you, Tommy.
That's our Tommy.
We
Have a great
appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.